Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. It's lovely to have so many people on here today for Tay Training's first session with Southwark, an area which I'm very familiar with. A lovely part of town as well, in a city which I consider to be the best city in the world. And I'll probably tell you why later on. So welcome aboard. I'm just going to start sharing my screen and let's hope we have a really good day today. So my name is Alan Saville. You will also see my colleague Noel, who is here as well. Noel's kind of doing some clever background stuff and helping me throughout the day. I work for Tay Training, and we firmly believe that quality training can transform lives. It's a real pleasure to be here with you guys today, and also to be doing work in Safeguarding Adults Week as well, which is going across the UK as well. So we today are looking at safeguarding people with multiple disadvantages, something which I'm sure is going to be very close to your heart, and we will see that in a while as well. Let's tell you a little bit about Tay. Tay are a national company. We only recruit people who have got lived experiences and real experts, and they get trained using a methodology being called the Training for Influence methodology, which looks at 4 areas to make sure that our training really comes alive for your delegates and for you. It's a proven fact that the way we do it, people actually remember up to 80% or more of the content, which is really exciting for me. And we look at 4 areas. We are experts in our field because we've either done this job or we have got some lived experience. So we've got learned experience. So we completely align with you guys. That's really important. We make sure that our courses are engaging. We make sure that our courses are tailored for the audience we are in front of. And we've also got a golden thread, and you will see this in a while, about core values, because we firmly believe that people with the same core values can really make a difference in the world. Sometimes just one of us can't make a difference, but more than one person together, it's like a little army of people who really have got the same kind of thought processes. And that's what makes it really, really interesting. So sadly, I am only here with you for 2 hours today. This is very much like a bite-size, whet your appetite for supporting people with multiple disadvantages. And then we're hoping at a later stage we can actually do some bigger courses, longer courses, which will give you all of the information which you really need. What you can see in front of us are things which people have actually sent back to us on feedback. Every time we do a course, when we've got delegates, we ask for feedback, and we get judged on the amount of excellent feedback comments we get. And on average, I think our courses are about 96, 97%. So we're very, very proud of that. And again, we're really proud to be with you today. And hopefully this won't be the last time we talk to you guys. So what we're going to do is we haven't had a chance to really tailor this yet because we don't know you guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a poll in the screen, and you should see a poll popping up now on your screen. It's just really to get an idea of what your current understanding of safeguarding people with multiple disadvantages is. So you've got one choice. You can click I'm new to this role, limited understanding, basic understanding, clear understanding, or I have an expert understanding. Okay, so I'm going to launch the poll, and you should be able to put in your answers. And I'm hoping people are experts, you see, because if I forget anything, I can go to you. But this is purely all we can see is the answers. So I think we've only got about, how many have we got? No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of us. So how many people? 3, 5. We've got one more person. Oh, there we go. Right. So we've got 50%. There's me showing off so I can do my maths. It does say that 50% are new to the role and limited understanding. Fantastic. Clear understanding. So that's 2 of us, and a basic understanding, but do not currently support people with multiple disadvantages. So we've got a multitude of experience, but everybody within the room is as important as each other. And all your experiences will probably help others today to actually get a good experience out today. So thank you for that. Let's go back to my shared screen. Can you just, I just moved that poll out of the way. Right. Today, this is what we're going to look at today. What is multiple disadvantage? The connection to safeguarding, a legislation overview, and we're not going to bombard you with a lot of legislation today, but just have an understanding of where all this comes from. The categories of abuse, is somebody potentially a victim and or an abuser? Protective factors, things which will allow these people to grow and become part of their community. And this is something which is always a thread through every single Tay course, is your own emotional resilience, because you're out there dealing with people in crisis, and sometimes we can't pour from an empty cup. So we're going to look at all of that today together. So if you have a look at the top of it, we've got a golden thread, okay? This golden thread, it says expert, tailored, and engaging, and we've also got core values. And that core values is the part which makes these courses and makes you people, it's really exciting to work with you. Values is the golden thread. That is what actually gets us into these roles. It's why we do things, and it's the thread which drives us to success, and it makes us. It's the core values is the driving factor for everything we do in life. All of our kind of all of our ideologies, and we're going to look at that because it's really important to galvanise the room at the moment. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to go into some breakout rooms, and we are going to just have 2 minutes. 2 minutes. So there'd just be 2 in a breakout room. I'm just going to like you just to answer these questions. So have a little look at this for me. I just want you to say the type of service users you work with and why you have chosen to do this role. Now, this is completely optional. So when you come back out of the breakout rooms, and these are only for 2 minutes, if you want to add to the chat room your name, role, or contact details for networking purposes, you can well do. Okay, because this is what this is about. This is the power of everybody having core values. I'm just going, right, thank you for admitting that person. So I'm just going to go back to ground rules. So while you're thinking about why you do what you do, which is sometimes easier said than done, actually. I didn't even realize I had core values a while ago. I just thought it was me. So while you're having that thinking space, I'm just going to say the reasons why this is recorded is this will be going out to or be offered to thousands of people within Southwark. So you are the lucky guys who've come and doing this with us, and then this is going to be sent out to other people. So when we go to breakout rooms, you're not being recorded when you're in a breakout room, but every time we're in the main room, you will be, and my voice will be, and Noel's voice will be. So today's ground rules, rather than asking you those ground rules, can we just please mute unless you've got something desperate to say? You can use the chat box, and when as soon as anything's in chat, I will go to it and read it. You can get involved in many, many different ways, because it's important that you get involved. The more you get involved, the more you get out of it. And I will learn stuff from you today, and so will Noel. So that's really important. So they're really the ground rules. We need to look at making sure that if we disagree with someone, sometimes we might have to disagree. Please just be aware of our own emotions. We don't know who else is in the room, so there may be people with lived experience. So we need to just look after each other and respect each other. And one thing which sometimes people don't really remember on training is to have some fun, because training, that's the best way people remember, is if they have fun and they come out of the day smiling. I saw everybody come into the room smiling. I'd really like you to go out of it in 2 hours smiling as well, because it's so important. So that's really the ground rules. But please, if you are going to talk about things which are fairly emotive, please be aware that if you say anything, it might be later on given out to up to 7,000 other delegates who will be watching it. And sometimes when we're talking about abuse, there'll be people in this room who have suffered stuff. Please don't tell us anything which you'll make later regret. But if you have got a lived experience which you would want to share with somebody, this is a safe place. Obviously, safeguarding rules for us have to apply as well. So if you said something which could be potentially show me that you're a danger to yourself, to somebody else, or a child, I would have to take that further. But please see this as a really safe space. It's a safe space where you can talk about things openly and you're knowing that nobody is going to judge you. That's really, really important. The health check part of this, guys, is, yes, we are going to be talking about emotive subjects. Some of them, we got no getting away from, and some of them are quite tough, especially if you've gone through them. So all the way through, your health and your well-being is completely paramount. So if you need to take a break, just put something in the chat room. If you need to, just put 5 minutes or something. If you just need to clear your head or what have you, just let us know so we know that you're safe. That's the most important part of it. But look after yourselves and other people. I don't want anybody to feel to come out of this room upset. We will be having to touch on things which are sometimes a little bit tough, but we'll do it together in a way which you know that we are here for you. And if you need to contact me at any time, you can put something in a chat. If you want to contact us outside here, we can support you as well. It's really important. And the accelerate your learning style here is everybody has a different learning style. I'm a fiddler, so I normally like messing around with bits and pieces, or I doodle, because everybody's brains get stimulated with education in a different way. So if you need to get your plasticines out, if you want to do a jigsaw, I've had people doing, what have I had recently? Or an amazing crochet scarf. By the end of the day, it was like a Doctor Who scarf. If you need to doodle, that's fine. If you need to make copious notes and you don't really say anything, that's the way you learn, that's fine, because you need to find your own style, and we'll try to adhere to everybody's styles within the next 2 hours. So that's like the ground rules, the health check and the recording. If you can remember back those 5 minutes, this is what we're going to do now. So we're going to go into a breakout room. You'll only be two. One of you might have, probably two of you, one might have a three. You've got 2 minutes, so it's a massive challenge. The team you work with, the service users you work for, and why you do this role, and then we'll feedback. So when you're ready, if you can put everybody in their breakout rooms, mate, that would be fantastic. We're all here. Now, because this is only a 2-hour session, I'm going to kind of guess why you are here. Okay, this is me going to be reading minds. I should think that everybody within this, in fact, actually, put your hand up. Well, you can't do Licia, we can't see Licia, and at the bottom. But is there any, put your hand up if you you don't see yourself as a caring person who cares about people who are disadvantaged. Be a bit of a shame if you were here and you did do that. But okay, so that's one thing. So this means that everybody here is here because they care about people, and they know that it's sometimes through no fault of their own, people become disadvantaged, and you care about people and trying to make better communities. So if I ask anybody to put their hand up if they don't agree with that statement, there you go. So if I said to you what your core values are and thread through all of your lives, I am going to guess that you are compassionate, honest, empathetic people. Am I wrong? I've got some, there you go. That's good. If I could tell you the lottery numbers, I would do, but I can't. If I knew it, I'd keep it to myself. So this what makes this very, very exciting. These courses mean that together, one person can't really change everything, but people who might not know each other before today, you've all got the same core values, which means together we're like a little army of people who really want to make a difference in our communities and for people less advantaged than ourselves. And that's what makes this very, very important, and it makes it really exciting for me. So, normally we would go through and would ask you what your core values are. We haven't got time today, but hopefully that should give you some good feeling, and it should make you feel really empowered today and feel really proud of what you do, because we need more people like you guys out there to help people who are in dire crisis. So thank you, guys. Right, okay. So that's what we just done there. Right, what we're going to do, I don't know if anybody knows how to use Slido. Slido is this very clever little world, which is still a bit like magical to me, and it allows you to answer questions from your phone. So if you've got a phone with a QR code, what I would like you to do is to get your QR code reader out and scan that QR code for me, please. If you haven't got the ability to do that, you can actually go on slido.com and put the number there, that hashtag 041594, if you open up another window. If you can't do either, don't worry, because we'll ask you to do it in a different way. But if anybody has actually been able to scan that QR code, I'm going to ask you a question in a minute. And you'll be able to write your answers on your phone. And miraculously, in this weird world we're in, it will come up on my screen. So hopefully, if you had chance to download it, or if you say you could just do www.slido.com and then that number 041594, it will come up with the questions as well. So this is my question to you, is this one here. He says, trying to move everything away. What do we mean by the phrase multiple disadvantage, guys? So if you can put that into your, write your answer and press click, it will come up on our screen. So let's just see what you know. More than one issue. Well done. Oh, I'm so pleased when it works with someone. I'm so pleased. More than one issue. So that's the multiple part of this disadvantage. If there's anything else you want to put on, or if there's anything which you know, the service users you work for, and the kind of things which they actually have to go through, you could put that there as well, guys. More than one issue. Physical, mental, financial. Yeah.
Could you just give me the code again, please?
Oh, I can, yeah. It's at the bottom there. 041594.
041
594.
Oh, it's not. Oh, sorry, 041
594. I feel as though, Francis, I should have a drum roll to make sure it works. If it doesn't, just put something in the chat room and I'll come back to you.
Well, it's opening. Yeah, okay, no worries.
It's clever, isn't it?
I've opened it in a new window.
Oh, well done, you.
Okay.
It's like mythical magic to me, all the way this works. So it's lovely. Lots of things which makes things harder for them. Yeah, I like that. Complex safeguarding, subject to multiple impressions and disabilities. Oh, that's a clever one at the bottom there. Multiple intersecting disadvantages versus others. Yeah. Physical, mental, more than one issue, individuals or families that meet multiple safeguarding criteria. And we know sometimes that criteria can be quite tough to actually understand. And of course, if we have got here that we've got the phrases multiple disadvantages, and I'm giving Francis time to type hers in as well, is it just one organisation which could deal with multiple disadvantages? If you put that in there as well. So in other words, if you lived in Southwark and you had multiple disadvantages, could you go to a one-stop shop? Because I don't think we would, really. So if you think that you could go to a one-stop shop, if you put that in here as well, or we've got some chat. So let's just see what's in the chat box as well. Oh dear, Julian's being too loud, so he's going to another PC. So that's interesting. So I don't think anybody's put yes. So we also know that because somebody has got multiple disadvantage, it's not a one-stop shop. So you can't just go to one help centre. Sometimes this is, because it's multiple disadvantage, it needs to be a multiple agency approach as well. And we know sometimes that can go wrong, but this is also the beauty of having everybody in his room as well together. It might... sometimes we have to work together and have an understanding of our criteria and what we can do and work alongside somebody else. So we can only take, say, for instance, it was a, what have we got here? We've got some kind of substance misuse. That could be your bag, and somebody else might have to deal with something like organisational abuse. But together we come together to make this person's life better. Many disadvantages, I think this is Francis's one, interrelated challenges that can limit an individual's opportunities and life chances. And that's a really nice way of putting it as well. We need to have an understanding that sometimes it's really important that most people have got something to contribute with it in life. Sometimes they feel as though they can't, a lot of the time through no fault of their own. And multiple disadvantages makes it really tough. So this is what we're going to look at today and have a really just an understanding of exactly what that means. So thank you for getting involved. Excuse me. Right. So this is kind of some of this intersecting inequalities. And we're talking about individuals don't always fit neatly in one service group user. And that's exactly what we said, such as an older person or with mental health services. Just admit Julian. And people have intersecting inequalities, which some of you wrote, so spot on. And these are not, these only include, this isn't a finite list, domestic abuse, substance misuse, mental ill health, adverse childhood experiences, risk of or homelessness, removal of children, and involvement in the criminal justice system. And if I asked you to write these down on a piece of paper and then see how they intersect, most of the time you'd have lines going from one to the other, and in the middle of your paper you'll have many lines interlinking. In the middle part of your paper, excuse me, only an hour and a half to go. And the middle part of your paper would be very much like a spider's web, or it'd be like a big knot in the middle. And this is what people's lives can be about. They don't only have one issue. And one of these on their own is very complex. It can be very challenging towards life. But if you've got more than one, it can become very overwhelming very, very quickly indeed. So can I ask, how many of you guys today, some of you said when we did the poll that you don't deal with people with multiple disadvantages, but some people do. So is there anybody who's willing just to say kind of what disadvantages you're working with, what people you're working with, and what are their multiple disadvantages within Southwark for me, please? Who can unmute and just chat? Anybody?
I can say something.
Okay, thank you, Julian.
Yeah, well, quite a few. Substance misuse, mental health, risk of homelessness, involvement with the criminal justice system.
So therefore, straight away, and how complex these people's lives are very complex. And would you say it's fair to say a lot of the time it's through no fault of their own?
Most of the time, yeah.
Yeah. And this is what makes this really important, doesn't it? And thank you for sharing that. And it sometimes can be very difficult. And do you work with other agencies within Southwark?
Yes, with Lewisham Council, the safeguarding team there at times, and the community mental health teams, and other non-statutory organisations that are maybe specialists in dealing with abuse and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Brilliant. And it's important to know that, isn't it? This is where things went wrong in the past, is people never used to work together, but the working together and working for a common goal can make it work and make it really important for people, making people who feel as though they've got a voice and making them feel as though they are part of our communities. And that's what makes you guys really special for what you do. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch a little bit of a film now. There's no airs and graces on this young lady. She's going to talk about her story. So she does swear in it. I'm sure that we probably hear these swear words within our service users. She doesn't really hold back either. So this is a health check for you guys. If there's anything in it which resonates with you and you just need to take a step back, please just put something into the chat room and look after yourselves. We're going to watch it for about 4.5 minutes. And this is her story. This is a person who's actually gone through this. This is an actor. And let's just see what she has to say.
My dad was very violent, abusive alcoholic, so we had a lot of upheaval. I used to pray, to God to stop me dad hitting me mum. I walked in the kitchen once, my mum's feet was off the floor and he had her by the throat, her eyes bulging. That's probably where it comes from. I'm always waiting for something to happen. When my mum left me dad, she took us to live in Liverpool. And she left us in the care of them, her mum and that animal, her father. I'd get on his lap and he'd put me on his groin, and it was horrible. So I'd get off and he'd put me back, and then he started touching me down below, and he had these long fingernails. He stunk of that fairy soap. And my mum was never really there because she was working and she had evening school. I just wanted a normal family life. There was this little girl on a Channel 4 show. She used to sit with a clown. And I used to wish that was me because she looked safe. She looked happy. The world could see her. They knew who she was. It's like an orphan. That's what I felt like. I started self-harming at 8 or so. I was sitting at the bus stop and I said, if this next bus is not a number 6, I'm going to cut myself. And there was this broken Coca-Cola bottle and, yeah. But no one noticed or said anything. I started drinking when I was 9. It took away all the anxiety of what I was facing at home. And we was back living with my dad and he was abusing me. And I was bunking off school, doing gas, deodorant, Tipex thinner. I used to go around flats on motorbikes, doing wheelies and that. Oh, I loved it. I loved it. First got arrested when I was 11. Thought what I've been through, getting arrested don't scare me. I'd be off me nut a lot, but it gave me confidence and I didn't give a fuck what anyone thought of me. Really, I did, but I didn't. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to see how Jesus felt once and I hammered a chisel through my foot. Didn't get right through to the bottom though. And I'm saying all this and I'm thinking it's fucking no wonder I'm fucked up. My first suicide attempt was 16. I found a load of medication in a cupboard and I ended up in hospital, stomach pumped, come to in intensive care and no one was there. They drugged me up. I didn't know what day it was. I was just vegetated. I was in there, I don't know how long, a few months. I had jobs over the years. I worked for the Royal Mail, British Telecom, reconnecting phones. I was going to join the army, get away from it all. Thought I'm in a war zone anyway. This one time, so much had happened. I knew I was going to kill myself. I was driving round, plucking up the courage. Put the music up, put my foot down. I was coming down Goswell Road, zooming. It was a nice motor. And I've gone down the bus lane, slammed into second gear, music pumping. Now, I was blessed because the traffic lights for that bus lane was green. Had they been red, I probably would have killed 15, 20 cyclists. I just shut my eyes and 72 miles an hour. Car hit them lights, tumbled over, people were running out the way. And the state of that car, you wouldn't believe someone got out of that alive. And I walked away with a scratch on my finger and I thought, I'm fucking still here. I lost my leg a while back because of medical negligence. I had double pneumonia and no one was listening to me. My mum overheard this doctor saying to a junior, local pisshead, probably got trapped wind under a rib cage. And I'm rolling around. I'll never forget that pain, excruciating here. And I was pleading, Mum, just get a gun, shoot me. They ended up having to take the leg off. What was happening to me? It's like I was put on this world to be abused. I got so much pent-up anger. And the police, the authorities, they need to hear this because they just view me as a fucking waste of space, just like my dad did. Do you know what I mean? People automatically judge me because I took drugs before, but I'm recovered now. I don't need to self-medicate. I still need the help of a couple of pills, like my hands, they're red raw, because my blood pressure's so high, because I get so anxious, and that's how I am on a daily basis. It's horrible. I got raped within the first 3 weeks of being in a relationship. She stabbed me and pushed me down the stairs, and Louise from Flick, she was there for me.
Apologies about the sound, and Noel said the sound wasn't very good. Hopefully, if with the subtitles you could see that is a person who's a very real-life person who went through a terrible time in her life, but can also go out the other end. Very complex. I'm sorry that she was talking about some horrendous things, but this is why we're here. Has anybody got anything they would like to say about that piece of film? Was it shocking, or is it kind of what you knew was out there? So over to you guys. Unmute. Feel free to speak to me.
I think you always know it's out there, but it's still always shocking to hear it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And definitely got clients that you can kind of see have had similar experiences, but it's still a shock every time you hear a news story. Yeah, and I think it's really important that to have an understanding that the day nothing shocks you, the day you think that you've heard it all, is probably the day that this isn't the job for you, because sadly everybody's story is slightly different, and some people are just do the most remarkable. How they survive, I won't know. Now, I didn't. So I'll ask Noel to talk about himself when he does the wellbeing part at the end. But just to let you know, when we're talking about suicidal ideology and all that kind of stuff, my background was I was a police officer in good old London town, 15 years. I've worked in many prisons. I've worked with children who've been sexually abused, physically, mentally abused, and I also run a charity called Ian's Chain. Now, Ian's Chain was set up in 2013. 6 months after the suicide of my son, who was 23, who had been abused, not by someone we knew, when he was 15, and sadly he took his own life. And so when we're talking about suicidal ideology through today, I completely understand it, and it's always nice for me to say that at this stage I'm very proud that I've saved 81 people now who have actually been sat on bridges, were preparing for suicide, or actually going through a suicide attempt, who I brought back and kept safe. So when we're talking about all this today, it resonates with me, and I know how complex things are, and I also know how quickly things can change for people. And it's another reason why I do this, because I firmly believe that people should have a chance. I'm not saying it for any reason, shock value or anything, but it just hopefully will resonate with you guys, and so this is why I do the course. And thank you for that as well. So that was really useful. It's quite shocking, isn't it, to think that people are going through this, and sometimes we've got people who might be overtly showing what's going on to the world, and we've also got people who will just get on, or they will see that as this is the way things are. And it doesn't have to be like that, because this is everybody's chance to make people's lives better. And people will normalise their poor behaviour, and this is where we need to use our professional curiosity to get behind it and see exactly what's what. Just going to see what's in the chat room. Oh, thank you, Harriet. Yeah, it's it can be quite tough sometimes, but I'll put my details down there as well, because that's really, really kind for you to say, because you might be able to use it with your service users. It's completely free. So thank you very much for that. Right, let's get back to the screen. Where are we? I'm just going to put some put all this into context. It's always important to see exactly what has been going on. And this is only for adults. So this is from statistics from April 2020 to March 2021. So we know that things change. We know we're in this pandemic. And so things were getting troublesome for people. But look at these figures, guys. Nearly 500,000 estimated safeguarding concerns raised to the local authorities. 500,000. Okay, that's an increase of 5% on the previous year. Potentially that could be because there are more issues, and also it might be that LAs are seen in a better light. You know, we've gone through these dark periods, and now people actually come to the local authority because they know they can be helped. There were 152,000 safeguarding inquiries commenced by the local authority under Section 42 of the Care Act, and that involved nearly 123,000 individuals. Nearly 17,000 other safeguarding inquiries were made by the local authority using other powers, which is up even more by 7%. And 30% of those safeguarding inquiries were due to neglect and acts of omission. And 50% of those were deemed at risk, were said to be at risk in their own home. So we've got to really remember that sometimes this is happening in front of us. This is potentially happening to people we know, and sometimes it becomes normalized. So these statistics are actually quite shocking, I think, especially as it's increasing. I like to think it's because you guys are out there and people know that they can come and get help.
The Care Act, Section 42, if you need to know, requires that each local authority must make inquiries or cause others to do so if it believes an adult is experiencing or is at risk of abuse and neglect. And we will look at the different types of neglect in a minute. Right. Safeguarding is everyone's responsibility, and to be safeguarded is everyone's right. Everybody has, everybody on this planet, or the majority, have got a part to play in society. They are part of the framework of this country and the amazing city of London as well. So everybody has got a right. We're not just looking at children. We're not just looking at adults. We are saying everybody, irrespective of their circumstances. We do need to be aware of our unconscious bias. Sometimes we think, well, potentially, well, this person deserves it, etc., etc. But in the main, everybody has a right to be safeguarded, and safeguarding is everyone's responsibility. By that, I mean that it's not only people who work within their community, such as you guys, it's down to people who, if they think something's going on next door, they need to report it. Or if they hear something down the street, they need to report it, because this is where sometimes it goes wrong. We need to interrupt this generational cycle of harm and abuse. And if we do interrupt that cycle of harm and abuse for one person, we can improve the outcomes for many. So safeguarding, I think, as we do the umbrella, is we're looking at people have a right to live free from harm and abuse. And I think we get that. But this is everybody who needs to look out for each other, because this builds communities. And it stops this happening. It stops another person talking about being abused by granddad and their dad, and then taking a suicidal ideology at 8 years old, drinking at 9, etc., etc. Because this is why people who have got multiple disadvantages, it can become completely overwhelming. But it's really nice that, we spoke to one of our colleagues today, said that he works with so many other agencies, because this is the crux of why this would be successful. Right, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you, we've got a chat room there, so you can put stuff in there, or if you just simply want to unmute and ask these questions, we're going to look at parent-carer vulnerabilities. We want to look at what issues parents or carers have that might compromise their capacity to care for children or adults at risk. So these are people who are doing their best a lot of the time. I firmly believe that most people want to be a good parent or a good pet carer, but things can happen sometimes. So I'd just like to look at that. So you can either put it in the chat room, what issues they might have that might compromise their own capacity to care for children or adults. So if you don't want to type, please just unmute and chat away. Over to you guys. Let's see what you can think of. What we got? Oh, that's good. Always like to see when one. Here we go. 2 in the chat room. Poor upbringing of their own, work commitments. That's really good. Rachel, work commitments. People are working harder and harder at the moment, and sometimes to the detriment of other things. Really good. Poor upbringing of their own. Yeah. Any more? Lack of knowledge or ability, Jodie. Perfect. If you don't want to type, or if you're quite happy just to unmute, please do and chat to me as well. So we've got 3 there. Let's just see what we've got on our list. Marginalised or isolated by the community. And that marginalisation or isolation could be for many, many reasons. We need to be aware of that. History of mental health. Alcohol or drug misuse or domestic abuse. Everybody is on a scale of, everybody has mental health. Sometimes our mental health is good, sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's in the middle, and it can fluctuate very, very quickly. So, do we think, guys, that someone can just unmute and answer, do we think that there's still a stigma around mental health or alcohol or drug misuse in this country? What do we think?
Yes, I would just like to say that I just think there is a huge, huge stigma and especially I've seen it in the community that I work with, mental health, history of drug and alcohol abuse. It would seem sometimes that people are not allowed to make mistakes, and people are not allowed then to come back from it. And I think that living in a community that demonizes and labels members of the community, they tend to then live by those labels. And that then inhibits their recovery, because if you get called an addict enough times, and if you get called crazy or depressed enough times, it may seem that that's exactly who you are. And if other people around you don't want you to recover, then I think it can be really hard to find the strength to do that on your own. And that's what I want to say about that.
Fantastic, and thank you for sharing that. I think that's a really powerful message. You know, how often we see people who are obviously in crisis, and people walk past them, or will laugh at them, or cross the other side of the road. Excuse me for my throat, my chest infection. And there's normally a backstory. I often speak to people who I look so they're in crisis in the street, and I've been asked to help with the suicidal crisis as well. And most people have got a backstory. And, you know, the other week I shook somebody's hand. I bought him some sausage rolls, shook his hand, and he said, "You're the first person who's touched me for years." He was an ex-soldier, PTSD, some other issues around abuse, and he just literally couldn't believe it. And he said, "Everybody sees me as this invisible person, and I'm not." So I think what you said, Georgia, is completely right. And thank you for that. And, you know, just because people have got mental health issues doesn't mean that they can't survive. I've been there, and I've gone out the other end as well, and I can do what I can do. Learning difficulties as well, and, you know, people said that a misunderstanding or what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing, and we can't actually, again, you know, there's a stigma around that, and people say, "Oh, look, they're just stupid," or, you know, or they're sandwiched short of a picnic, and all that type of stuff, not understanding that that person has got ears and can hear all of this. A past history in the family of childhood abuse, self-harm, or false allegations of physical or sexual assault. And of course, you know, we can never underestimate adverse childhood experiences. But please, just because somebody has been abused in their past doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go on to be abusers. It's something I think which we need to really put out there, because it's so important to realise that. And a lot of people who've been abused go on to do amazing things and support others. But I think sometimes there is a misunderstanding that if you're an abused person, you will go on to do the same to others, and it's not right. Grief is a big one as well. And grief is a very, very complex issue on its own. Everybody grieves at a different stage and a different style, and there's no grief path as such. You know, I know people who are still grieving the same as they did after their child died 10, 15 years ago, and others have kind of not moved on, but they've learned to live with it and they've adapted their lives. But grief can play a massive part in why people's capacity could be compromised, even for a short while. And a parent or a carer who's been a looked after child, by looked after child, a lack child as we call them, there's people who've gone through the care system. I always worry about this because, again, because people have been through the care system doesn't mean that they're not going to be great parents. In fact, excuse me, I know a lot of people who have gone through the care system who have seen the mistakes the care system made on them and would go out of their way to make sure their own children are safe. However, it also does make you vulnerable as well, because maybe you haven't had life chances, and this is what this is all about, chances, isn't it? Okay, what we're going to look at here is everybody has personal factors. So this is factors around us. Everybody, if you look in the dark blue in the middle, you've got the person in the middle, and you've got difference, disability, ethnicity, gender, mental health, religion, sexual orientation, and age. There are our personal factors. Okay, and on the outside, there are things there which are situational factors which could arise and could cause somebody to become a victim of abuse. Now, if we look at this list, we're took from the top, adverse family circumstances, and that's massively ranging on its own, isn't it? Adverse community circumstances. I think at the moment, sadly, communities are divided. I'm not going to go down a political route, but I don't think certain people have actually helped. And we need to think about community again. We need to be proud of our communities and galvanise. This is why you guys do your jobs. Adverse cultural influences as well. In London, as we know, it's one of the most culturally diverse cities in the world. Long may that continue. But we also know that cultural influences and differences have to be understood, because that's never going to go away. And in certain circumstances, culture and honour is a big driving factor for abuse. Coercive control, we're looking at survivors of domestic abuse, something which is very, very close to my family's heart. My wife is a survivor of coercive control and domestic abuse, and it takes a long, long time to get over. Grooming, which can be tied in with coercive control, can be tied in with any type of exploitation. Immigrant status, and let's be honest that people will use that immigrant status very much to their advantage, or people are coming over to the country, having their passports taken away, no recourse to public funds, and they're very, very vulnerable. Isolation, lack of power or lack of support, language barriers, poverty, which we're seeing more and more poverty, presence of an abuser, and risky behaviour. Some of these are interlinked as well. Some of these, even if we look at adverse family circumstances, were possibly very much linked into risky behaviours. And risky behaviours come to the forefront when people possibly taking substances as well. And so, you know, it's a really important thing to look at here. This was produced by the College of Policing only 4 years ago, because we need to have an understanding that everybody could be a victim of abuse, and it's so complex. This isn't just a very easy thing to pick out. And when we look at symptoms of different types of abuses, a lot of them are similar. So it's down to our professional curiosity to have an understanding about this. Has anybody got any queries about this part? Anything you want to say? I can't believe we're an hour through already. Does it make sense so far? It's really important to know this, and it's also, you know, it's important for your service users to know this as well, because life is very complex. Hence the reason why we're saying that no two people are the same, no two circumstances are the same. Right, I could be awful and say, right, this is all the legislation we're going to do today, and it will freak you out because there is loads of legislation out there. But we're only going to be looking today at the Care Act, and we're just going to be scratching the surface, okay? As we know, there are very, very learned specialist solicitors who will deal with just some of this legislation because it's very, very complex. For those of you who are doing the second part of the Taytay training, which is around the Mental Capacity Act, we're going to be looking at that. I think it's Thursday we're going to be doing that. But today we're specifically looking at the Care Act. But if you see some of these different acts and sections, I would not have a clue what No Secrets DOH is. I would not have a clue of some of these areas because I don't need to know. So later on we'll look at a pyramid and we'll see exactly what we need to know for ourselves and have an understanding of our local authority and our own policies and procedures. But nobody understands all of this. And so this is why we have, as I say, we have our own policies to water it down and make it relatable to you. But today we're going to look at the Care Act. Excuse me. So the Care Act can be, this is like a layman's view of the Care Act, okay? There are many things which it can do. And the Care Act in 2014 said that we must start to look into any worries about adults who need care and support and may be at risk of abuse, neglect or domestic violence and take action to protect them. So these are like the MARAC meetings, the multi-agency risk meetings, all of those type of things are out there to safeguard adults. Okay, now we would have a Safeguarding Adults Board with members from the council, the police and the NHS, and this is the main part of this, who will work together to help keep people safe. I think it'd be quite naive for me to say that sometimes this has always worked. And when we look at Victoria Columbier, which is just the other side of the river in Haringey, for instance, we know that some of these organisations, very big organisations, very powerful organisations, didn't cross the I's, dot the T's, or the final part of that jigsaw was never put in place, and tragedies have occurred. But with the Safeguarding Adults Boards and Safeguarding Inquiries, they can be, I don't know if anybody, has anybody sat on one of these boards before I go any further? Either put your hand up or put something in chat. If you've either had to sit in on one, be in one for yourself or with other people. Anybody? Let's have a look. Let's move my thing and see what people say. You have. Right. Okay. Licia, how overwhelming can they be when you sit in there? Were you there as a professional, or were you there as a someone in need? Hopefully you won't mind me asking.
As a professional, where
As a professional.
I sat on some of the serious adult review panels
Oh,
where
okay.
you're answering questions in terms of your organisation and where learning can be, and it can be very challenging.
Right.
At times, yeah.
So these are panels where things have gone tragically wrong, or someone's been seriously harmed or murdered, and they can be really quite. As a professional, they're quite hard to walk into, aren't they? Because you've got everybody will turn towards you and what have you. So if you are somebody in crisis, this is why we have. Thank you for that as well. They're tough things to sit on. Hopefully you got the result you needed. But this is why we arrange for an independent advocate to support adults who need extra help during a safeguarding inquiry or a review, because it's really important. We need their voice. We need them to feel empowered and safe. And sometimes it's quite difficult when you've got everyone looking at you, asking you, what do you want to do? And you don't, you are in that kind of position where you might not really have an understanding. This is the important one as well, guys. This is so, if you just remember one thing today, this is so important, is to cooperate with our partners in order to protect an adult with care and support needs who is experiencing or is at risk of abuse. So the partners sometimes come together at the safeguarding adult boards. They will certainly come together when we've got a serious case review, and we're working together with partners. So we would have to have a firm understanding of what our role is in this to make someone safe, as well as what other people are doing, because we would all have our individual roles. As we had earlier on, delegates saying that they work with different agencies. This is cooperating with partners. We're not to see other organisations as rivals. They might be sometimes rivals when we're going for money or going for grants or what have you. Excuse me. But in reality, we need to work together, and that's important here. So they're the 4 areas of the Care Act. Looking into any worries, having safeguarding boards to try to work together to keep them safe, independent advocates, and then cooperation with partners to keep that person safe. Okay, right, what we're going to do, there are 10 types of abuse detailed in the Care Act, okay? I'm going to stop share, and this is going to be a fastest finger first game, okay? What we like to do is to be, as quickly as you can, try to put down those 10 types of abuse in our chat room. Over to you guys now. Emotional abuse. Oh, hey, blimey. Someone's got very quick fingers. Domestic, physical, emotional, and financial. So we've got, how many is that so far? 1, 2, 3, 4. There are a few more. Institutional, yeah. Controlling, yeah. Keep them going, guys. Superb. Any more? Some of them are probably, so we've got, pregnancy. That's quite an interesting one. I should imagine, Rachel, that you're pregnancy, when you were pregnant and you were in a coercive, controlling behaviour relationship, it puts you in a great area of great concern, to be fair, because you are very vulnerable. Because the focus is now on a baby or an unborn child, and the perpetrator might not like that.
Yeah, well, I did. I also, what kind of came to mind, it's quite an unusual case with a couple, and she had seven or 8 children. So the husband liked her getting pregnant and would insist on more children, because then he was in control. She was pregnant, she had to stay home with the children. She couldn't get a job. She had to stay home more towards this last trimester. She couldn't see her friends as much.
Wow.
He was in the main breadwinner. Obviously, she was pregnant a lot, had young children. So it was that kind of control. Like, he liked to get pregnant. Yeah.
And
unusual.
It is, but it actually, when you say that, it does happen quite a lot. And you see, you know, while you're pregnant, you're not going to leave me. While you're pregnant, nobody else is going to fancy you. All of that coercive control. And people might just say, oh, look, how wonderful. They just love a big family. But it isn't. And it's a massive step to do, isn't it? To take on that massive financial burden for 18, 20 years purely to control your partner. And it's really important what you put there. So when we're looking at controlling behaviour, I think we can say that that's domestic abuse. I don't particularly like the word domestic violence anymore, because it's a bit bigger than that with coercive control. Modern slavery, Julian, I think we've got that. We've got emotional. Has anybody put down financial? I think we've got that. Have we got the 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've near enough got the 10, I think. Financial. Oh, self-neglect, which is an important one to look at, and neglect and acts of omission. Bear in mind what we said at the start, a lot of this is coming from within the home as well, acts of omission. Organisational abuse, we've got discrimination, we've got modern slavery, we've got financial or material abuse. Psychological or emotional abuse is a really interesting one, which I'm going to talk to you about in a minute. Sexual abuse as well, guys. And a lot of these are very much interlinked as well. And it makes it very difficult. When we're looking at in a minute, and we're going to put you in some breakout rooms to get you to discuss this for about 5-10 minutes. When we look at these, they are very much interlinked. And actual fact, when we look at this kind of symptoms and how this would manifest itself in somebody's outlook, they're very similar a lot of the times. So we couldn't say, oh, a person is behaving like X, Y, and Z because they're being sexually abused or because they're being financially abused. A lot of them are very similar. But there is a bedrock there as well, guys, and it is this. So that's a really good chat room. So good guy. Well done, you guys. If we look at this here in the green, hopefully this is okay for everybody to read. I know it's a bit bright. Emotional abuse is at the bottom, because research and a serious case reviews show that emotional abuse is linked with all the other abuses. So if you think this was a house, this would be the foundations. Emotional abuse is always there, and it will probably go across all of the abuses, and is often the start of such abuse. Makes it quite difficult to see, because emotional abuse is the inner soul of somebody, and it's playing with people's minds. So it's something which we can't overtly see on the outside, which is slightly different. If we looked at physical abuse, potentially we could see bruising or biting and all that type of stuff. But emotional abuse sometimes is the inner core of somebody. So that's like the bedrock. And then we've got the ones in pink. These are physical, financial, sexual, and neglect. And then we've got these new, they're not new as such, they're actually, some of them are very old, but we have modern slavery, discrimination, domestic abuse, self-neglect, organisational abuse, and exploitation. Things which are going on right under our noses. It's going on, and they don't discriminate in respect of area you live in, or how financially stable you are. They are there everywhere. It's sometimes we're quite blinkered, or people just don't see it happening. So they're the 10 types of abuse which we're going to be looking at. I'm going to put you into some breakout rooms, and what we're going to do is, we haven't got that many people, so we're going to give you I think we've got about 10 people. So what we're going to do is we'll give you we'll have 5 breakout rooms, please, Noel. And breakout room 1 will talk about modern slavery, please, and exploitation. Breakout room 2 will look at discrimination and what we meant by organisational abuse. 3 will be domestic abuse and self-neglect. 4 is physical and sexual abuse. And last but not least, 5 is financial and self-neglect. No, it isn't. It's neglect. Sorry, I'm talking rubbish. So I'll just say that again. Room 1, modern slavery, exploitation. Room 2 will be discrimination and organisational. Room 3 would be domestic abuse, self-neglect. Room 4 is physical and sexual neglect. And 5 is financial and neglect per se. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. And what I'd like you to do is, when we look at these, You'll be given 2 categories. Discuss that category, decide a definition if you can, and how it presents in your service users. Okay. Now, we're not going to have long to feedback. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a 5-minute discussion, and we're going to then have somebody from every group just to feedback to see exactly what you found. So a potential definition and how it might present in your service users, or anything else you want to say. Right, let's get to our breakout rooms. So thank you, Noel. I saw that Noel was going around and making sure everybody's okay. I'm sure that everybody had something to say. Really sorry that it's such a short time, really. To say normally safeguarding and safeguarding awareness lasts a whole day, so we're kind of amalgamating a lot of stuff. So, okay, now we had Jodie's, we've had a few people, we've lost a few people actually. I don't know where they've gone. Hopefully they will come back. So room 5, which was to do with financial and neglect, never materialised. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of talk to you about those ones, about financial abuse, because I don't know where they went. Poor old Julian was left on his own.
Oh.
I don't think there was anything he said. We didn't have a chance to say anything. She's gone. Oh, here we go. Jodie's back. She's back. So in respect to financial and material abuse, what we do is go through, give you some examples, really. So it could be a theft of money or possessions, fraud or scamming, preventing a person from accessing their own money, benefits or assets, employees taking a loan from a person using the service, under pressure, duress, threat or undue influence put on the person in connection with loans, wills, property, inheritance, financial transactions. Bear in mind, we said that a lot of this actually happens within the home. Denying assistance to manage financial affairs, denying assistance to access benefits, misuse of benefits or direct payments in a family home, false representation, using another person's bank account cards, etc. And it's very, sometimes, you know, you're thinking that someone's actually doing okay for money, but their circumstances don't mirror their financial their financial status. So they should be having spare money, but then they've got no money to eat, they haven't got any money for heating, etc., etc. It becomes very prevalent really when people become older, and when you'll see a lot of people who have got dementia are also victims of financial abuse, because it's very, very difficult for them to communicate and articulate what is going on, and it shows people can be quite greedy, really. And neglect, where have we got types of neglect quickly, is failure to provide or allow access to food, shelter, clothing, heating, stimulation and activity, providing care in a way that a person dislikes, which is quite interesting, failure to administer medication, refusal of access to visitors, which is all about isolation, not taking into account individuals' cultural, religious or ethnic views, ignoring or isolating people, preventing the person from making their own decisions, preventing access to glasses, hearing aids and dentures, and failure to ensure privacy and dignity. Some of those we can look at as an organisation as well, but when we look at that alone is massive, and that's only 2 of these abuses. So what I want to do is somebody who spoke about modern slavery and exploitation. Could you just unmute and just give us a little flavour of what you were talking about? If you've got a definition, that's fine. Over to you guys. So that was, I think that was room 1.
Yeah, we spoke about modern slavery and exploitation. We're saying that modern slavery is like gathering, you know, men, women, children, and forcing them into work, like through like coercion, or through putting them in a financial situation that kind of, you know, limits their options. So their only way is having to work through you, or through deception. So you kind of say one thing, put them in a situation where they're unable to get out of, so they're forced into a situation. And exploitation was similar. So it's like treating someone in a way that is unfair in order to make them do stuff. So like through in a financially exploit someone, sexually exploit someone. It's
using someone who's possibly already disadvantaged to be totally controlled. And exploitation, it's right out there. It's right in front of us. Modern slavery is right out in front of us. You think of what type of places have you got? We've got loads in Southwark, actually. What type of places do you think might be purveyors of modern slavery on your own doorstep?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I can't think of the top of my head.
I'm going to see any. Pardon?
Car washes.
Yeah, car washes. Has anybody got their nails done nicely? I haven't.
Yeah,
I'm doing that, so mine are going to be coloured. Yeah.
I was speaking with Francis in my group.
Oh, sorry. Rachel first. Yeah.
Sorry, I was speaking with Francis in my group, and I did actually say that I do know of a nail shop that is legit where I live, and one that has illegal stuff. Whether it's modern slavery, I don't know, but I do know that it's illegal. Yeah.
A lot of the time, Rachel, it's really interesting is when those nail bars close at night, nobody leaves.
Yeah.
Because they normally live on the premises. And a lot of the time they've got no recourse to any funds. They've probably had their IDs taken away. English is their second language. Ideal for exploitation. Completely ideal, really. But modern day slavery, you've got human trafficking, which is quite prevalent at the moment, forced labour and domestic servitude as well. And that is in certain cultures as well. People will come over and they are literally treated like slaves from in the 1700s, given very little money, if anything, and they work ridiculous hours and they're not allowed out, etc., etc. And debt bondage as well. You're forced to pay off a work debt and you're never going to get to the bottom of that work debt. Which is quite interesting. So I think exactly what you said, and I know this is only a short kind of getting people to think today, but really good. So thank you. Discrimination and organisational was our room number 2. So what did we say? What did you have there?
Francis, do you want to do that, or do you want me to say?
There you go.
Well, we can
do it together.
Tag team.
Tag team.
So we had discrimination, didn't we?
We had so we kind of crunch that into persons or groups of persons abusing, discriminating against other individuals or groups of persons based on gender, ethnicity, sexual preference, what else, religion, that kind of thing, these big categories, so making it less interpersonal and more about an abhorrence of another person being different in those categories to whatever.
I like that. Being different is in this day and age, I can't compute it really, because I think we should be celebrating people being different. But of course, for those who are willing to abuse others, it's easy picking, sadly, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? What else did you have? Organisational. That's an interesting one, that is, I think.
Yeah, we spoke about like organised crime and the organised groups, so cuckooing, county lines. We actually also incorporated modern slavery. So that was something we kind of picked up on, and grooming as well, we said.
We also talked about the connection between organised crime and institute. So, for example, what you were talking, so a person with no recourse to public funds who's an illegal immigrant is incredibly vulnerable, but they're also systematically victimised by local authorities and HMRC and government immigration policy. So we kind of talked about that as well.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting one. I wasn't really aware of how much went on, and probably that's me being naive, but when I did my Taytay training, or training for influence training, there was an amazing lady on there called Carmen Clark. So this is what she taught about how people are treated when they come over here for want of a better life. They don't get any money, and they might be in Scotland and they still have to come down to Croydon. They don't even know how the train system works, and they've got no money, yet still got to go down there, etc., etc. Very much discriminated against from the HMRC, and I really like you to say that. I can't go on my soapbox today but let's be very aware that it can very much happen. And also when we're looking at organisational, please remember some of the stuff we had on Panorama about care homes and children's homes and all of those things as well. So, you know, we're looking at authoritarian or rigid regimes. We're looking lack of leadership, rundown or overcrowded establishments, inappropriate use of restraints, lack of respect of dignity and all that. And sometimes that is very much missed. Because some of those homes are very insular and nobody from the outside ever comes in, or when they do, they put on like a sanitized version as well. And there's a lot of good stuff on YouTube about organizational abuse. And so although we haven't really got a lot of time to talk about it today, it's such a big, broad thing. And, you know, you are dealing with other people who are very vulnerable. So we're looking at different organizations. It could be people who have got mental disability, physical disability, dementia, as you say, refugees, etc., etc. People who are kind of isolated anyway, and then there are other people who will prey on that and use it for their advantage. Anything else you guys want to say? Excuse me. All good. We've got a question here. Would it include right to family life from Julian? What was that on? Was that on exploitation or was that discrimination, Julian? Oh, you have to, yeah, you go.
I don't know which one it was now.
Oh, can't you? There you go. It happens to us. We're of an age, sir. If it comes back to us, dive straight in. I'm sorry I missed it. Right, who would you have next? Domestic abuse and self-neglect. Self-neglect is quite an interesting one. So that was team 3.
So that was myself and Kaylee.
Okay.
Yeah, so we discussed self-neglect in terms of hoarding.
Yeah.
And in terms of addictions as well.
Yeah.
And how we might come about, you know, within our practice, how we might highlight them concerns. We spoke about lack of self-care around self-neglect, neglecting personal hygiene, and, you know, failing to access services.
And it's difficult, isn't it? Because there's a fine line between being eccentric or wanting to live your own life, how you do, and then sometimes it comes to a time when it threatens your personal health and safety. It's quite a fine line there. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose that's, again, it's really important for us to be, you know, as professionals, to be trauma informed around the language that we're using and trying to understand some of the root causes for these lack of engagement, and considering capacity as well throughout the whole process.
Yeah, 100%. And some people have capacity just for simple tasks, and bigger tasks they don't, and what have you. And that is the next stage of this, which is on Thursday, because it's extraordinarily complex. Mental Capacity Act is massive. We need to really have an understanding of that as well. And yeah, I think that's great. Self-neglect could be inability, unwillingness to manage your own affairs. And it comes a time, you know, I think in the past when people say, well, why are you sticking your nose in? You know, what's it got to do with you? I can live my life how I do. But now, of course, there's more of an onus to support those people, which is really important, which is fantastic. So domestic abuse.
Yeah, I'll carry on with domestic abuse. So
okay.
We spoke about the definition, and we spoke about the new Domestic Abuse Act.
Yeah.
And the definition was around any incident involving somebody those aged 16 or over. And it could be a one-off incident or a pattern of incidents of a controlling or coercive or threatening behaviour that involves intimate partners or family members, regardless of gender or sexuality.
Spot on. Spot on. I mean, you do have reactional violence, which is someone who just can't take violence anymore in their home. And we see that all the time. We saw that the other week with a lady who got life. Someone might stab a partner just purely because they just can't take it. It's still domestic abuse. You've got situational, easy for me to say, situational violence, where maybe two people aren't feeling fear, but it could be that there is violence there. One might be wanting to stop someone, the other one drinking, or want a share of their drugs, or whatever it could be, but there's no fear, but they still hurt each other. That is another kind of, when you look at it, domestic abuse. Excuse me. And the third one is coercive control, which is the one which is very difficult to prove. It's very difficult when you look at the stages of abuse until somebody recognises that they are being abused. All we can do is to say we believe you and we're there ready for you. When a time is when you see that safety is a viable option, we are here for you, because they are groomed so well and so cleverly that a lot of the time they have a distorted view of reality, and they change their own ways, because they say, well, if I didn't do this, if I put his dinner on the table, this wouldn't, X, Y, and Z wouldn't happen. And they start to victim blame. It's something which I was very honoured to train. I was one of the 20 trainers who trained the 8,500 Met Police guys. So I was actually in Southwark and did it for those guys. They were fantastic, actually, to be fair, in Southwark, because it's such a difficult, complex thing to look at, because this isn't the bruising, this isn't that type of abuse. We're looking at the internal emotional abuse, which is sometimes quite difficult to see. So yeah, I mean, when we look at this, guys, and this is, please just believe me that this is just for this is just a flavour of what we do and what we're training. It's very, very complex situations. And a lot of the time when we're saying that a lot of these interlink, and when we look at the signs and indicators, a lot of those interlink as well. So this is our professional curiosity. This is us down to ask those questions in the right way, empathetic way in which to get results. Because a lot of people, are very embarrassed of the situations they've got in, or they've got into a situation which is so heinous, they don't want to talk about it because they're not ready. So we can only be there for them and say, when you're ready, I'm here. And that can be the difference between success and failure. So a really good conversation there, guys. But sorry, we've got to crack on. Otherwise, we will be here forevermore, which I'd dearly love to be. So what we're going to do is we're just going to look at this. I'm just going to go through these, really. This is indicators that an adult might either be abused or they might be an abuser, which is quite interesting. So it could be their own injuries, fear of medical help, not seeking medical help for themselves or a vulnerable person. So they could be worried about what somebody's going to say to a doctor or a nurse or a GP, or they don't want to go themselves. And you will find a lot of the time you might be abused, and you will find people, especially in domestic abuse situations, will not go to seek medical help because they aren't ready to get any more help. All they're doing is trying to keep alive, and they manage those risks themselves. And it's very difficult when you're thinking about this, and we're thinking the person who might love you actually wants to hurt you. Moving on very quickly, guys, a delay in seeking help. That could be for many reasons. Could that be, because we want bruises to go, or we don't want people to ask the questions, or we need to get it right in our mind of what we're going to say. Evasive or aggression towards others. So this is interesting. We've got yin and yang here. We've got people who might become quite isolated or quite meek and quite isolated, or you've got people who are being aggressive. So this makes it very difficult. And it could be, you could be an abuser and you could be showing this, or you could be abused. So again, this is our professional curiosity. Refusal to discuss issues. Until people really recognize that we are there to support them, why are they going to want to talk to us about things? Because a lot of these guys, actually, I'm going to ask you, why do some people refuse to discuss issues with you? Why do they fear you guys who work in social, under the big social umbrella? What might have happened to them in the past?
They might have been at a higher degree of risk.
Yep.
Or they may also feel that you're going to do things without their consent that they believe will then put them in a higher degree of risk.
Yeah, I like that very much so, without their consent, and we'll be looking at that in a minute. So well done. And we've also had a lack of trust. Sometimes we only have one chance of helping people. If we get it wrong, or we go down the wrong route, or we don't listen to them, or we don't show them respect, it can go very, very wrong. And so you could be the first person who can then that person actually trusts. You could be the very first person in their life who they trust, and you should see that as a great honour. Right, apologies that happened to shoot on. Explanation inconsistent with physical injury or injuries. Interesting, when we're looking at injuries, we do a lot on the courses about when people have got multiple injuries and they're all at different stages. So it could be a very, very black and bruised to near enough just a tiny mark, and in between is a sustained abuse, or the explanation is inconsistent. And we know where people hurt themselves when they're playing sports or what have you, on the extremities, on the shins or what have you. But sometimes, they'll try to talk away injuries, and it's either inconsistent or it's just it's not viable. Disguised compliance guys, these are going to be people who will say that they're going to work with you, but they're not. And sometimes, because it looks as though they are being compliant and they are being helpful, that they kind of go underneath our radar and they aren't seen as potential abusers. They're seen as people who are on our side, but they're not. And one person, when we look at this and we look at the Sower murders and we look at Ian Huntley, he was fantastic at disguised compliance. A new partner in the household can make somebody very vulnerable to abuse, or it could be that abuser has come in to abuse them, or somebody they have escaped from will go back to abuse them, especially, around domestic abuse. When someone tries to move on and have a new partner, that can be very detrimental. And also those who are being coercively controlled sometimes will go into yet another abusive relationship, because that grooming stage, the groomers are brilliant at doing what they do. Displaying inappropriate behaviour, failure to meet the basic essential needs, including health needs, leaving a vulnerable person alone. And, even when we're looking at that is so complex. There may be reasons. It might be that someone just cannot cope. It might be for the reasons we said earlier, why someone is lost the capacity to help people. Keeping an unhygienic, dangerous or hazardous home environment. And that does also include hoarding. It includes people who've got, inappropriate amount of pets in their home. It could be that people have got methadone or what have you, and they're storing it around where children can get hold of it, etc., etc. An unkempt presentation, or mental health, alcohol or drug difficulties. So, these are it makes it very difficult, because if you can have one of these and you could either be an abuser or you could be abused, it is down to our professionalism and our capacity and drive and resilience to ask questions. Okay, this is quite a nice little slide. We are looking, guys, at protective factors. There are protective factors which help people, and this is where you guys come involved in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read these through, and then if you can think of any kind of if somebody can think, or a couple of people could think of something which has happened in your community within Southwark which kind of accentuates this learning, I'd be really happy for it, please. So healthy relationships, we are here to encourage respectful and healthy personal and professional relationships. Some of the people with complex needs have never seen this, and so it's down to us to be able to show that people can be trusted. Not everybody is an abuser. Very quickly, when I worked in a children's home, a young girl there didn't speak to me for about 5 weeks, and then she said, "You know what, after a while, you're all right, you are." I was like, "What's that?" And she said, "You're the first male who's never tried to abuse me." And so we had professional boundaries and a great professional relationship, and she thrived. Social connection. People thrive when they feel part of a community and don't feel isolated or alone. I'm thinking of people who may have, we were talking earlier on about the stigma of abuse, the stigma of drug and alcohol abuse as well. People feel isolated. They're more likely to keep into that destructive kind of ideology. But when people feel part of their community and they feel valued, they will thrive. Cultural identity. People feel more confident when their cultural identity is respected and they are free to practice their beliefs. And long may that continue. I think, this country has kind of been fractured there. Creating an environment where non-violent social norms are practiced can support positive behaviours and attitudes. I think we can all understand that, and I know that there's great work being done by the police and youth services to try and prevent this violent attitude and young people killing each other. People recovering from adversity benefit from supportive personal and professional networks. This is why you guys are here. And celebrating diversity, creating environments where people feel safe from all forms of discrimination. So within Southwark, has anybody got anything which they can say is happening within Southwark, which kind of have they been set up to deal with one of these protective factors? This is time for you to kind of be really proud of where you work, where you live or work. What's happening in respect to social connection? Have you got community groups or community gardens or anything like that? Are you looking after ex-offenders? Anything? It's all gone quiet.
So I do have a few clients that do go to community centres within Southwark.
Okay.
Some do like Tai Chi, some do cooking, IT skills for the phone, setting up Facebook. And they do thrive from that, being in a community where they're able to relate to others, and
That's
they feel that they belong, especially if they have quite high anxiety or isolation, then they may go with a carer for support, and then being in a room that's got a small group of other adults with similar issues. Yeah.
I'm glad you spoke there because I did a cough. Did you notice? I
did.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, it's really important that, these are people who've probably been on the outside of society for a while for for a multitude of reasons. And that is so important to actually feel part of that community where they live. I went to a lecture by John Lydon the other week, who's the singer of Sex Pistols. That's all he spoke about for 2 hours was community and why community spirit is so important in this country and why it's missed. And I think that we can never underestimate the power of just that social connection. And of course, then that will actually link in with some of these other things as well, because healthy relationships might come out of that as well, and this supportive network. So these protective factors, it is like a honeycomb there, but they're also interlinked as well. So thank you for that, Rachel, and you should be dead proud of that in your community. Anyone else? Before we move
on the subject of community and community cohesion, my boss is looking at me now, which is why I've just started talking. So basically, Bricks and People's Kitchens, where I'm from, and that is exactly what the whole project's about. And it is so important that communities are encouraged to come together, and like you said, through food and through activities, and that is literally what we spend our days doing, so that people feel like they belong. And I think making your projects culturally appropriate to the areas that you're in as well. And our projects are centered around food, so that means we stock culturally appropriate food, which means that they then talk to me about recipes, and they talk to each other about how they cook the food and what they feed their kids. And I think it all links into giving people who may feel less than, feel more than, and valid and respected and like a human being within their surroundings. And I just think that's so important.
Fantastic. And what is your thing called? Brixton
People's Kitchen.
Oh, okay. I'd really like to know more about it, actually.
Yeah, I'll put some deets in the chat at the end, and then hopefully we can all just be friends forever.
Yeah, there you go. I bet your boss is laughing at you when you just said that.
He walked away a long time ago.
Oh, did he? Oh, he's heard you before. But that's really important, guys. And please use this. If you think that you want to network, put your details in the chat room, because that sounds fantastic. So we need to make safeguarding personal. I'm very aware of the time where we've got so much to go through, but we've been speaking about so much. It's about empowerment. So we need to ensure people are supported and confident in making their own decisions and giving informed consent. That is the important part here. Is this empowerment? People are more likely to take ownership of issues if they feel empowered, and a can-do attitude. We need to provide support and representation for those with the greatest need, and it's crucial to try and take action before harm occurs. We need to try and prevent neglect, harm or abuse is the primary objective, because if we can cut it out before it happens, this intergenerational abuse, we've got a good chance for the next generations coming forward. And when we've got there, it says their proportionality, we must take a proportionate and least intrusive response to the issue presented. We've all heard of the old adage, we don't use a hammer to crack a nut. We need to be as least inhibitive as possible to allow that person to feel that they're not encumbered by our actions. Partnerships, creating partnerships with local communities can create solutions. We've just said that from these guys. And accountability, by being able to take accountability and have complete transparency in delivering safeguarding practice. That is so important, okay? And I'm very aware of the time. I'm very aware that we finished, we started a little bit later. So we're probably, if it's okay by you, finished by about 10 past, and we've done the 2 hours if we can do. But this is really important. We've got to understand what the adults' priorities are, and sometimes that might not align with ours, but we need to obviously be aware of the Mental Capacity Act when we're looking at that. That comes on Thursday. What outcomes do they want to achieve? Again, it's them, it's not us. We need to be able to see what they want to achieve. If they take ownership on that, they're more likely to adhere to it. Are they available of all the available options to keep them safe now? So this is this multi-agency kind of approach. And who in their network would they like to be involved in keeping them safe? And what other agencies may be able to contribute to their safety? It's really important to have an understanding of this. And we would do this in a lot more details if we were allowed to do our safeguarding courses with you. But it's so important. Right, I'm just going to go on to this national safeguarding framework. There's always a framework of everything we do. At the bottom is the legislation. This is all the very wordy stuff where all the learned people with their big curly white wigs go and they do all that type of stuff. So we're looking at the Care Act and the Children's Act at the bottom. Because that is so complex, it filters upwards towards government guidance. And this is where they take all the real main parts of that act out and make it more doable for us, because it's so complex. Remember, I said that there are certain, there are solicitors who just who just look at one of these acts and they are an expert in just one act. So we're not expected to know everything. Then it goes up to our local authority policies, procedures and guidance. Every local authority is slightly different, I would say. And so we need to know their policies. It's really important of how your LA want you to do things, who to contact, when and how. And then at the top is your own policies and procedures. So that really is driven from the bottom. Everything's driven from legislation all the way up to your policies, procedures and guidance. They are there not to trip you up. They are there to help you and give you the guidance and support in order to be successful. So it goes all the way from the bottom and it filters up. Although we're at the very top, the pinnacle of this pyramid, it doesn't mean that our policies and procedures aren't as important, but they have probably actually been driven by the bottom part of legislation and government advice. Right, this is what you need to do. This is what we always need you to do, is please always discuss your safeguarding concerns with your line manager. Safeguarding issues can come out of nowhere. People will throw you curveballs when you're not expecting it. If you think there is a safeguarding concern, please don't sit on it and think, well, I'll leave it a little while. I don't really want to upset anybody. It's a Friday afternoon. There's always, please know who you can contact. And they are there as your manager for you to actually utilize. Share your concerns, seek advice and guidance, but always act. I would hate, we were talking earlier on about serious case reviews, where, it's not particularly nice when you're going into one of those and you might be looked at and near enough, not on trial per se, because that would be a police matter, but you are being made to kind of tell people why you chose to go down a certain path. Sometimes that could be quite squirmy if you've done something wrong, but we need to always act. Always do something. There's nothing wrong in saying that there's a safeguarding issue and it turns out that it isn't. We would far rather you do that than not do anything at all. We need to work in a multi-agency way, working together. And this is something which is so dear to my heart. Please record everything thoroughly and accurately. If you just remember this little adage, if it's not written down, it didn't happen, then you can't go wrong. There's nothing worse than having to give evidence or something at a later stage and nothing's written down, because that person there who is maybe looking after a client will say, well, how can you remember what happened for 3 years ago? I put it to you, Alan, that never happened, or you've got it wrong, or your memory isn't as good as you think. And before you know it, your evidence, your crucial part could be watered down. And so your observations are significant, as are your opinions. And we need to learn lessons. This is why we do supervisions. This is why we learn and we have reflective practice, because it is so important, guys. But please, your actions is always act. Gut instincts. I know there's something wrong. I'm not quite sure what it is at the moment, but go and get that advice and write down what you've said and who to. And we need to look at who why, where, and by whom. That's what we need to get. We're not there to provide answers at this stage. We need to get the facts and we need to move them on. Any questions about these actions, or are you quite aware of this? All good to go? Cool. Okay, so we are now going to go back to our Slidos. If you can remember back that far. I don't think this one's going to work. Right. All right. No, what I'm going to do is, for some unknown reason, this QR code hasn't gone over. Forget that. Can I ask you, please, let's see if it's going to work on the next one, what your top takeaway from today is. It might work. I might have left a slide out. If you've got your Slido there and that has come up, that's really good, because I panicked from the slide before. There was something on it which shouldn't have been on it. What was your top takeaway from today? If you can't use Slido, just pop it in the chat room. But please bear in mind that this is just a flavour. This is a 2-hour session. What was your top takeaway from today? Or if you want to unmute and just say something, that would be wonderful. I'll see what comes out. Better understanding of abuse. It's all around. Yeah, I like that. It really is. And you're the eyes and ears of the community. Anything else, or anyone wants to put anything in the chat room? Anything else which you said that people's needs can be so much more intricate and complex it seems at first look. Yeah, and we've only scratched the surface of this. You know, people's lives are a bit like an onion with many layers, and when you are disadvantaged, there's more than likely going to be more than one, and it makes this extraordinarily complex. Anything else, guys?
Yeah, are you available for a few minutes after this call?
Yes.
Okay, that would be great. Thank
Okay,
you.
that's cool. Francis, if you need me to call you completely away from here, or we'll stop the recording, I won't be going anywhere, but I'll stop the recording. Is that?
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, mate. That's cool. Okay, that's good. Hopefully not telling me off, which would be embarrassing.
Not at all, no.
Oh, bless you. Don't worry. I'm only teasing you. I'm just going to see what's in the chat room. Oh, there you go. That is all to do with Georgia from Brixton People's Kitchen. Feel free to come and say hello. If there is food from Brixton area being cooked, I will be down there. So brilliant. So we got some nice takeaways there. Hopefully you guys have got something out of today. This is only to make you think again. So we're going to look a bit about burnout. So I'm going to talk to you about this, and I'm just going to hand over to my colleague Noel, who's a bit of a yoga guru, actually. He's not going to get anybody to balance on that. Well, I don't know, he might get us to balance on our heads, I don't know. But this is really important. This is always part and parcel of every single TAY course. Burnout is a state of chronic stress leading to an inability to function, okay? It is caused by unexplored compassion fatigue or other work-related stress, lack of support, lack of autonomy or role confusion, or toxic work environments. And this causes us physical and emotional exhaustion, cynicism and detachment, and feelings of ineffectiveness and lack of accomplishment. It can creep up on you extraordinarily quickly. It has in my past, and we're our world's worst enemies. But we're only our world's worst enemies because everybody in this room cares about people and they want to see social injustice eradicated. And so sometimes we work so hard and we are like emotional sponges. Sometimes we forget about ourselves, rather like the mechanic who has the dodgiest car in the street with the loudest exhaust and the smoke coming out the back and everything. Sometimes we're so close and we tell our clients to look after themselves and we forget about it for ourselves. So I'm just going to see what's in the chat room, then I'm going to pass over to you, mate. Kaylee, okay, you take care. Hopefully you've learned something out of today. Look after yourself. Thank you for coming. So that's what burnout is. And so it's important for us to have a realization of what we can do to look after ourselves. So I'm going to pass over to, I'm going to stop sharing it. I'm going to pass over to Noel, who can just talk about the importance of this. There you go, mate. Over to you.
Hi everyone. Yeah, so I'm not going to get you all to do headstands. So I might get you to do some handstands if you're all up for that. just kidding. So yeah, really just want to kind of talk about burnout and, you know, and how that really affects you and what you do when you're able to identify that and kind of what you do to switch off or relax. And, you know, I just looking at being in that situation myself. For example, another organization where I work for, the director and I, we was doing a kind of risk assessment on the company. And so she's a director and I'm the manager. And it turns out we were the highest risk to the organization because of possible burnout in terms of kind of what we do. And so being able to really kind of identify that and be able to kind of switch off and just take that little step back when you need to. So as Alan said, kind of yoga is my thing. I'm a yoga teacher, have been for many years now. And so that's kind of my go-to kind of technique to kind of just unwind and kind of relax the mind and kind of get rid of that kind of ruminating thoughts and switch off when I need to. So I just want to kind of just have a little bit of a discussion kind of with you guys and just see, you know, what that means for you. Ruby, what's your thoughts? What do you do to relax?
I spend time away from my screens and I read. I definitely think like I've definitely had like massive burnout in the last 2 years. I'm sure almost all of us have.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, I've just got to say, it's so important to deal with these things as like preventative measures rather than like waiting for it to all kind of get on top of you and then start to work on it, because like you'll save yourself by just like taking a little bit of time out of your day to just kind of check in, and helps you in the long run for sure.
And what does that look like when you felt that burnout coming?
Just, I mean, it was frustrating because it's tiring evidently, but just it's frustrating because all the work's still there and it piles up and your people are relying on you. Yeah. And you know, you've put yourself in a position where you can't look after other people, but you can't look after yourself. Yeah, it slows the whole process down. Everyone's kind of put in a position of vulnerability.
And I think, like, especially in terms of this instance as well, being kind of safeguarding is, if we do get to that point where we do reach burnout, then, you know, things start to change at work and you find you're doing less, you're not as productive, you're not able to put the work in. So in terms of a safeguarding issue, you know, based around that, then that's the last thing that we want to be doing, is missing out on potentially something that could be happening. Thanks, Ruby. Any other thoughts, anybody? Julian, what's your thoughts?
Just in terms of what I've done, particularly during the period of COVID, I mean, a work team thing that has been helpful is we do have monthly reflective practice sessions, which can be very supportive. But the other thing I took up, not wanting to use the bus anymore, was cycling to work every day. It's been surprising how positive that has made me feel, switching off from work and feeling a lot easier. I mean, I agree completely with what you're saying. Is one of the guilt things when starting to feel burned out is I feel I might not pick up things like safeguarding, and I'm not going to provide the level of service I want to, and then it can become a kind of vicious cycle. So
yeah, so it's definitely something there about nipping it in the bud. Then, you know, once you see that point and kind of identifying it. But how do you guys feel about actually communicating that at work? Do you feel that you're in a safe space to be able to do that and be able to kind of talk to your line managers if you're feeling at risk with burnout at that point?
Yeah, I think I've definitely got kind of a good, healthy working environment where, like, if someone is struggling or is just going like this is too much work, or just going like, you know, there's too much happening, I haven't got the energy for it, like, yeah, definitely feel very happy to have that.
Yeah, thanks. So what does anybody else do to relax? John?
Yeah, I'm a full-time carer for my dad at the moment, so I can't do what I used to do. What used to work for me was walking on my own, visiting art galleries and museums on my own, preferably. Reading. In, I think it was 2002, I basically had a breakdown, and what got me through that was education, because I hadn't had a degree or anything. And yeah, any courses, anything I can do, but like I say, I can't get out that much.
No.
So yeah, I'm pretty limited at the moment.
So I think there's something there about with yourself about stimulating the mind.
Yeah, I can't at the moment. I can't read. I haven't been able to read for about 5 weeks. It's terrible.
Yes, yeah. So what else do you do then if you can't read?
Yeah, nothing basically. I'm just look after me dad. I do a lot of voluntary work as well, so I have a lot of online meetings.
Yeah, but maybe you know it's an opportunity to look at in terms of your growth and looking at other areas and how you could potentially grow, because you know you found areas within kind of study and kind of stimulating the mind that way. So maybe something there about, you know, within the environment that you're in, or taking up some new kind of hobby or new kind of skill, because you know, we're never too old to learn and develop. You know, we learn from each other every single day. You know, I've learned so much from you guys from this session already. So, and I'm sure tomorrow we'll learn something completely different. And thanks for that, John. Has anybody else got any thoughts? No. Okay, then. Well, I'm going to hand you back over to the wonderful Alan.
Wonderful, Alan. That's really good. Thank you, mate. Yeah, I mean, this is really important. If you've done the best within the constraints of your role, that is all you can do. And it's very difficult sometimes to remember that. So this is why we do have debriefs and supervisions and reflections. Noel did the bit about relaxing, which is good. And please recognise your limitations. And it's never, we talk about stigma of mental health. It's never wrong to ask for help or go to see a doctor. It's so imperative that we do, because without you guys, your services would fall down. You're the foot soldiers out there. You're the ones actually supporting people, and you're the ones who are making differences in lives. And we can't have those differences made if you are poorly. And every single Tay course always talks about this, because it's so important. And I'm very aware of the time. So actual fact, we started at 10 past and we're going to finish at 10 past. So that 2 hours section, although we've just gone over the 2 hours, hopefully you found it really interesting. Now, for those of you who can see me, if you can see, there's a book there called Transform Your Training. So if you kind of like this training or like these kind of methodology and the way we've done it, and this isn't, you know, this is only a 2 hour session. Tammy Banks, who is the founder of Tay, along with her friend Faye, Tammy and Faye. Tay Training has got a book. If anybody wants a free copy of this book, which I have in my little hand here next to me, it's like my little Bible, and talk about the way we do training, please just drop a line in the chat box and we can do that for you. What is really important here is, if you see, this is from Helen Keller. Helen Keller said years ago, alone you can do so little, but together we can do so much. And this is the point of how we do this training, because we have now galvanized you guys. If you feel as though you want to jump on this, there's not many left now. If you want to actually network, please do. Please tell everybody about us as well, because it's really important. And I'm just going to, so if you want a book, let us know. These are kind of some of the courses which we do. There are many Tay courses. If you can see, there are so many, and this is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I think we work for 84 organisations because they realise the way we do things is slightly different. And so please, if you do want to get involved with Tay, go on to taytraining.org.uk and please get involved with us. If you would want to find us at Tay Training, in other words, if you want to review us, let's say you've had a good time today, please do that as well, because it's so important that you guys on the streets are involved as well. So please do find us on Google, put a review down, or use the good old Instagram or any of those things, which I don't fully understand. But find us on Tay, and please don't be strangers. So, we've got something in the chat room. Yes, please, that's Julian for the book. Okay, we'll make sure Julian, that's good. I'll even get her to sign it for you. There you go. We've definitely got to keep it in the bestsellers, even if we give them away. It's a great book, actually, Julian. Thank you for your input today. Right,